Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show. It's player Q&A this week, and we have Josh with us. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys.
And say hello, Lex.
Hello.
And we have Evoras with us from the forums. You might all know this guy already. I mean, most of you should. He's the guy with the crazy math formals and equations and everything he puts into his forum posts. Say hello, man.
Hi. Afternoon.
So we're here to interview him today and get some insight from him. And Josh, you want to go kick it off?
Yeah. So, Evoras, tell us a bit about your gaming background.
Well, I started, I suppose, with pen and paper, the old D&D type stuff. And then I moved on to PC single player games. And I think somewhere around 2000, I first came across EverQuest. That was the first MMO I ever spotted. And that got me hooked. I was playing that until about 2005. And that's when all the new ones came out. So EverQuest 2 and pretty much everything that went on from there. I think I've tried every single MMO since, pretty much. So City of Heroes, D&D Online, Lord of the Rings Online, you name it. If it's got an online on it, I've probably played it at some point. But,
so you know the good and the bad.
The bad and the worst, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is no good.
Well, I've been looking for the next EverQuest, the real successor. What EQ2 should have been.
Yeah, but tell us the real reason why, because you figured out all the math behind EverQuest and how to progress at a decent amount, is what you told us before the show. So that's the reason why you're looking for the next one. You're figuring it out.
You may not know what makes a good MMO, but you sure as hell can tell what makes a bad one. So it doesn't take long to work out where the flaws are. Oh, yeah.
Nice. And what got you interested in Pantheon then?
I actually stumbled across Pantheon almost by accident. I look at a lot of the new MMOs that come out just in case there's something coming along. And so I spotted that, and I noticed that a lot of the things that they wanted to do were harking back to EQ. And then by the time I got to reading down the list of things that they were talking about, it finally said, oh yeah, and it's being done by Brad. And I seem to recall, I think he had something to do with EverQuest. And that got me hooked. So then I went back and looked at the fine print and checked it out, and it looked pretty much like what I would expect the spiritual successor of EQ to look like. That's why I signed on.
Nice.
Play any Vanguard in the day?
I did. I played Vanguard. I think I played it too early. I played it early enough into Vanguard, not beta, but early enough in that when you went to the capital city, the lag was so bad it was like a PowerPoint slide presentation. It was.
But they had that flush command though. You could basically flush the cache, which I thought was pretty good in the day. Being able to flush your cache and have the game basically reload everything again from fresh. That actually did help out a lot back in the day to Vanguard.
I think something else must have come out not long after. Maybe it was EQ2. I forget the exact timetable. And so I sort of thought, well, between that and work, and it just got lost.
So what's the most exciting thing for you in Pantheon?
The fact that it is probably going to be a virtual world. It's not a theme park. It's not a game where it's a massively single-player online game. It's actually a world. You go into the world and you do what you want. There is no quest hub leading you to quest hub 2, leading you to quest hub 3, following the pattern as everybody else. No. You log in, you do what you want, when you want, how you want. That's it.
Awesome. So what class and race are you likely to roll first?
Well, I'm sure you guys are going to hate me, but it's going to be human.
No, you're perfectly fine there, dude.
Which is why I'm so much of an advocate of racial differences. I'll play a human summoner because that's what I played back in the day in EverQuest, and it's become a tradition. My main is a human summoner or mage or whatever you want to call it. So that's what I do. Now, that'll be my first choice anyway, if it works.
Nice. So, on that note, what is your least favourite race and least favourite class?
My least favourite, I'm sorry, but I have to go ogre. Not because of the models that they've used, which are actually quite a good ogre. Most of them look quite awful. But just because it's the large, bumbling shape of, it just breaks immersion for me. I just can't get my head into seeing myself as that. You know, maybe it's pictures of ogres back in EQ1 scratching their backsides. You know, it's just that. Can't handle it. So yeah, that's my worst class. And as for, race, and as for class, probably druid or rogue. Maybe because I can't play them very well. They're very positional, very situational, and I just can't quite get my head around getting in the right place and doing it properly. As a rogue, I tend to get too much aggro and die. So yeah, not so much.
Where's my Diagro button? Where's my Diagro button?
So, with that, if you had to choose between the two, which one would you pick and why?
I would rather play a rogue or druid anything than an ogre anything. So yeah, the ogre breaks immersion. That's why I don't like the ogre. So I can't play an ogre. I could probably play a druid or a rogue badly, but I just wouldn't enjoy playing the ogre. It just wouldn't do it for me.
So VR, if you're listening, please add plenty of emotes to the ogre class and race so that they have a bit more liveliness to themselves.
2 months.
No, I scratching animations, please.
Yeah, scratching animations.
Let's go for groin scratching like upper class citizens.
Oh, /EM. I don't know.
What about ogre? What about ogre spreading?
Ogre spreading.
So, what mechanics are you mostly looking forward to?
Well, I'm not sure they really fall into mechanics as such, but I would guess number one, class roles. Most modern MMOs, there are no class roles. It's one blurry DPS across the board. And so for me, that mechanic, the fact that each class is unique, it has its own role, it sits in its own little place. And that's what I'm looking forward to. So I want to play a summoner, and I want to see, what do I have to do to make the most in a group? What do I have to do against mob dispositions? What do I want to have to do against mob body types? What am I as a summoner going to have to do to be able to sort of play well? So it's not just, oh, I'm DPS, just the different color of DPS. So that's my biggest thing I'm looking forward to. Beyond that, challenge. Seriously, just challenge. It can't be easy enough that you can just rush in and kill everything. You have to stop. You have to think. If there's no tactics, if there's no challenge, then all the rest of it's pointless. So there's got to be, a death penalty that stings. There's got to be a reason for you to not just say, oh, let's zerg in and maybe we'll make it. Maybe we won't, but whatever. It's got to be tough.
Yeah, I think we all kind of share the same viewpoint. So, so if you could play Pantheon right now, where would you go and what would you do?
My guess is I would just run straight down Avendir's Pass towards Keep Leon with a bit of paper and mapping the whole thing so that I've got a detailed way of getting there, where the mobs are, maybe planning my way through so that I can figure out how we can get through to Halnir Pass Cave. You know, the gloomy one that they. Because that's
my home.
Now, if you can figure the way through.
I could be wrong because it's been a while, but isn't Halnir's Pass or the cave? Isn't that like the bottom part of Blackdeck Keep?
Yeah, well, it's called Leon. Keep Leon.
Oh, Leon. Right.
There was a change in the lore 2 months ago, I think it was. So
that's why I didn't know.
So you have to go through the back door of that to get to it. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
I think
and plus, don't forget they also said there's another entrance somewhere around Thronefast. Well, into Black Dagger's, or originally Black Dagger's Keep. So, I can't wait to find that as well. I want to find that secret entrance. That'll be my goal.
Running down there, mapping all the way. That's what.
Well, I think you're the only human that's going to spawn in the Broken Moor section, where the ogres have their city. So good luck trying to get out of there. But tell us about one of your most standout or funniest moments in your previous MMO experience.
Well, I would say there are probably two that come to mind, and I've sort of brought two up because there's one that's sort of bad in the way that it probably shouldn't have been done, and one that's good. EverQuest had a way of dealing with its own population, and your reputation was important. And if you did good things, people knew about it, and if you did bad things, you got into trouble. And I remember in Oasis of Mar, which is only sort of level 10 to 20 area, and there was a guy there who was begging a lot. And begging is frowned upon, and people always send you tells if you start begging, saying, don't do it, you'll get a bad rep. And this guy just would not stop begging for hours. So some helpful druid said, I'll help you. Just group up with me and I'll give you some decent stuff. And so he grouped up, and the guy just upped and teleported him to a place called the Emerald Jungle, which is, it's got a visibility of about 3 feet. It's swarming with on-site mobs about level 35, 45. It's basically death. He then, kicked him out of the group and zapped back and just left him there. Bye!
That's funny. That's good.
It's funny, but it's the bad,
Is it bad that my first thought was, why didn't he bind affinity? Oh, I'm such a horrible person.
So so that's the bad, and the best one was again from EverQuest. I would say you're probably familiar with EverQuest trains. There weren't zones where you didn't see trains, but I was sitting in the Western Wastes, I think it was, or Eastern Wastes, sorry, just sitting at the zone, resting, and some guy shouted zone to zone. We assumed that he just meant train to zone, but he was typing quickly because he was being chased. And it's sort of, if you know the zone, it's spread out with lots of little camps everywhere. So he was probably only bringing a few in. And we were there was about 6 or 8 of us at the zone. So we just stood up, buffed up, and we thought we'll derail this train, no problem. Anyway, so he finally comes into sight, and behind him is probably every mob in the zone. He must have collected them to do mass kiting of some kind. Everything was coming in. You couldn't count them. So that was it. Bye.
That's awesome.
That was awesome. Memorable.
Brilliant. So, if you could pick 3 things to be implemented into Pantheon, what would they be and why?
Well, as a summoner, number one, I want some kind, or I'd like anyway, some kind of pet customization. Whether it's pet advancement, or if it's choice of different types of pets, or questable pet variations, that kind of thing, so that there'll be different types of pets to use in different situations. So, grouping against some kind of mobs might need one kind of pet, others will be good against other body types. So because there's a lot of difference in dispositions and things like that involved, I think it means that we need, as a summoner, as many pet types as a warrior has weapon choices. You can draw an axe or a club or whatever it happens to be, but if we just have a pet, then that's all we can do. So that would be the biggest thing that I would want. Number 2, this leads back to my choosing human. I want significant racial differences. So I don't like MMOs where the only difference between races is just graphics. They're exactly the same. So I want differences. I want ogres to have like a mild resistance to poison. I want elves to have better view ranges. I want dark Mer to have some kind of swimming, or maybe even a bonus to holding breath time, that kind of thing. And preferably some kind of AA where you can enhance it. So you can choose to enhance your ogre resistance in whatever way you want, to be more resistant to bleeding or something. I don't know exactly, but something that means that each race is absolutely different. That if you're playing a bard and you choose one race versus the other race, there are more differences than just the look, in the look faction.
Before you finish, Smoko, I want what you're having. I want what you've taken, dude.
Smoking too many cookies.
Lots.
You were saying?
Yeah. So, number 3, slow leveling.
Yeah.
I mean, slow leveling. It's got to be slow enough that people can learn all the new skills that they've just picked up. Really slow, You're talking about stats again. I would like, if you assume a casual player plays 2 to 3 times a week, total of 8 to 12 hours, let's say it takes him 2 to 3 years to get to max level. So a busy player that most of us would fall into, so that's about 20 to 24 hours a week maximum. Playing 2 times at 4 hours or 3 hours each, and then the weekend we'll play 2 sets for about 6 hours each or something.
What are you talking about? 8 hours a day, man.
So, something like that would take 12 to 18 months to get to max level, which is not.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been a case of with slow leveling, it's more time to explore, more time to learn, more time to socialize. Whereas if you go to very quickly to max level, you kind of get there and don't really know what's going on.
It's like we were saying in previous shows as well about the when you level up, you gain your spells and everything. Your spell should have to grow with you. So over time, instead of just getting that spell and being able to use it to 100% effectiveness, it would basically grow gradually the more you use it. Kind of something that I would really love to see happen is you get your spell, you've now got to learn to master that spell, and once you've done that, then you're the true master of using that spell, and then you can basically add to it through AAs and stuff like that. I think that would go a long way.
Well, my worry is that if leveling is quick and people get new spells and abilities, then all this idea that we've got about the combat being more complicated, where you're having to do things like maybe interrupt with stuns, or you're having to play against dispositions or body types. How are you going to assimilate all your new skills, your new spells against these people? You'd have a new spell every 2 days or something. You'd never pick it up.
Yeah.
You have to be able to practice it. So that means slow things down.
Yeah. I don't want spells to just become useless after maybe 20 odd levels, and the ones that you learned right at the beginning suddenly become useless spells. I mean, what's the use of that?
That's happened plenty. In the newer MMOs.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how it was in the original EverQuest too. You would get your spells based upon certain levels, and eventually the spells would just be useless, and they'd sit in your spell book and never be touched again.
At least with EverQuest, the spells were just like the second or more powerful version of the same spell. So you knew what kind of resists it would have. You knew what kind of how it would work or what kind of damage it would do. Relative. So it wasn't like they were springing a new spell type every sort of spell. But yeah, again, it would be nice if there was some kind of continuity.
Yeah, exactly. So, what is your number one thing from the game tenets that stand out, and why?
I would say an understanding that the truly challenging is truly rewarding. In other words, challenge. If there's no challenge, there's no need for grouping. If there's no challenge, there's no need for tactics. there's no challenge, there's no what I call common adversity that will glue people together. So you're not invested in your character. It's the same as any other MMO, and you'll just leave. So challenge is critical, absolutely critical, I think.
I couldn't agree more.
I agree with you.
You?
So what's the number one thing from the Pantheon difference that you want to experience in game the most?
That's the first one that they list of all of the differences, which is like an MMO evolved, I think he put as the title. But what he really means is taking the best of EQ and Vanguard and using that. So more social, monsters are tougher, there's more challenge, there's exploration, death, stings, that kind of thing, strategy being needed. All those things that he talks about, where he really means take those challenging parts of EQ, the challenging parts of Vanguard, and roll them forwards, and that there is the number one thing, really.
I think Moko just kind of hit the nail on the head there and said greater effort, greater reward.
Exactly.
So if you could spend a day with a single person at VR, who would it be and why?
A tricky one, because I'm an inquisitive little so-and-so. I'm fairly positive I could come up with a laundry list of questions for any member of VR, to be frank. But I mean, I dabble a little bit in programming, and I do a lot of design as well, but on paper for the most part. So I'd probably want to steal Monty for a day and pick his brain, because he does design on the computer that I just dream about being able to do. That would be useful. So I think I'd pick his brain for a day.
Nice.
You've got some major talent, that's for sure.
Well, I'd kidnap him and make him design my character uniquely, so that
yeah, there's that. Yeah.
He's a world builder, though. That's a difference.
Yeah. Whole different set of challenges.
Yep, that's different. So, are you main for game or an alcoholic?
Lately, I've been an alcoholic. But when I look back, I realized that in EverQuest, I was a main. I just played one character. It's only in the later games where I didn't feel as involved that you sort of get a little bit bored, and so you try another one. And so now I would say for modern games, I'm an alcoholic. I'd have 6-8 alts easily. In Pantheon, I intend to pretty much do an 80-20, 80% on my main and 20% on some other alts, just to feel it out, see how it goes and stuff like that.
Nice.
Is that because, I just want to add to that, is that because there's not much to play, or is it because you're bored and have created the alts based on that?
Yeah, I mean, most of them, because you don't feel a challenge, I create the alts so that I can do other things and try other things. But in Pantheon, I think there's enough to do. There's enough horizontal progression and there's enough challenge that I'm going to want to try and master the class.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spend quite a lot of time doing that, and maybe some of the perception stuff, some crafting, and then I'll probably have a few alts, I'm sure, so I can try out some other things like an enchanter. I really want to have a go at one of those.
Nice.
Nice.
So, what is your guild preference?
Typically, I like to wait. Probably, I mean, I used to wait until about level 20 before I would make a choice about a guild, because it gave me time to prove that I knew how to play my character. And it always worried me that if somebody wants me to join their guild, then they must presumably know that I'm an okay player. And one modern MMO, I got a guild invite 1 second after I had logged in for the very first time to the game. I was literally just spawned, and the help stuff had popped up telling me what WASD keys to use, and ping, in comes a guild invite. So I would say that's probably a little early, and I'm happy to wait. But in terms of what kind of guild, it doesn't have to be a bleeding edge guild, and it doesn't have to be a little family. Anything in between, as long as the people are relatively nice, and I think maybe work might stop me from doing all the heavy raiding. Raiding 4 times, 5 times a week could be difficult. But anything in between is probably acceptable. Yeah, but fun basically.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, besides gaming, what other interests do you have?
Lots of them really, but it comes down to time. I mean, I read a massive amount of science fiction, science fantasy, all the way back from like 1960s fiction, some great stuff.
Wow.
Sort of Asimov, Clarke, Enoch Smith, you name it, all the way
Good
forward
stuff.
to more modern stuff. I also love watching B movies. There's some fantastic B movies.
Oh, awesome.
Don't get us
Iron
started.
Sky!
Don't get me
Don't get me
started. There we
started.
go. We heard it.
Like
There we go.
Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension.
Hey, Buckaroo Banzai, come on. That's an A movie, man.
Hey, it's got Jeff Goldblum in it. What more do you want?
Yeah, I mean, come on.
When he wasn't famous.
I'm sorry, but Iron Sky is the greatest B movie ever created.
Have you seen the second part yet, Lex? I told you the second
Not
part's
yet.
out.
Not yet.
I'll get you. I'll get you a copy and I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get you a copy of German quality Iron Sky 2.
I didn't even realize there was a second one.
I didn't either until
They're on the
a couple
moon.
months ago.
They're on the moon and they have dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they have dinosaurs that like do the Nazi salute. You're just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I saw the first one. That was bad enough. So, good enough.
Come on now. Nazi zeppelins in space.
What more could you want? Yeah.
How can you top that? That is like the perfect like antagonist of a story. God.
You watch the real life version of the Yamato that they did, Spaceship Yamato. There's an anime version and there's a real life version that they did.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna have to look for that one.
Battleships in space. So
Oh god. So when it comes down to longer gaming sessions, say like for a raid or something, do you have any kind of ritual or maybe even superstitions?
Not superstitions, certainly, but habits, yes. Things like music and munchables. So the music isn't that I'd like to listen to music while I'm playing to help me. It's to make sure that distractions in the background don't get through. So it gives you a sort of a level of noise in the background so that you don't hear the odd piece of noise. And munchables, because right in the middle of a pulling stream, you don't want to have to say, yeah, I just need to go and grab a sandwich.
So what munchables would that be?
Like,
Revels,
Pringles, peanuts, you name it, but nothing that's sticky. Like Cheetos. Your keyboard otherwise.
Oh yeah. Oh.
I don't. Sadly, when it comes down to like rating, I don't even do soda anymore because I've had too many whoopsies.
Yeah, there's that too. So.
Yeah. So here's the most important question: who is the VoT host with the most?
Well, I long pondered this, and I came up with a few possible answers.
Did you actually do a math equation for that one? Did you?
Well, I figured, could I plead the fifth? And then I thought, well, I'm not American, so probably not. The host with the most what? Hair?
Oh, I win.
Gray hair? Yeah.
So I don't know. So I thought I'll pick Lexar because his bribe came through. So.
Nice.
I pull ahead.
Yep. Yes, you do.
So, what are your final words for VR?
If I could talk to them directly, I would certainly say that they are doing a brilliant job in my estimation anyway. And I think all of them are working their backsides off. But I would say that I strongly suspect that their belief, because a lot of them did the work initially for like pretty much peanuts in their own time. I think their belief that Pantheon will be played will be vindicated. And I think not just by the loyal supporters. If you look on the forums, obviously there's all the loyal supporters, But I think once the game has gone live, and I think once people hear about it and start playing it and understand and have a go at this sort of first game in 17 years that actually has some kind of social glue that binds all the players together, I think it won't just be the loyal supporters. I think it'll be 10 times that. And I think it will do very well. And so all I would say is hang on. What you're doing is right. You know, there is a large number of players out there who would really want to play it. Keep on.
Definitely. Nice.
Oh yeah.
Nicely said. So before we wrap it up here, it's Josh's last show today for a good 4 or 5 weeks. So everybody, you know, give him a good farewell and hope that he comes back to us in 1 or less than 5 pieces. And we will be back on the 12th. We had a change in our schedule again. We apologise. We won't be doing a player Q&A next Thursday. We will be doing an open discussion. And we have Sacred joining us on Thursday to come and chit-chat with us. Anybody else out there want to jump on Thursday for our final show before we all go on to a well-deserved break is welcome. We'll be streaming at 4 p.m. Eastern on this channel next Thursday. Open discussion, anything that comes to mind. Next is going to talk a bit about the technical art and what that is moving forward, what that means moving forward. And anybody's welcome to join us on that show. So if you want to join us, hit us up, let us know. And we will be taking a break as of the 13th of October until the 8th of November, when we will be back for the stream on the 9th. And next Thursday is when we announce the competition. Finally, we finally got it all worked out. All the hooks and crannies have been worked out for you guys to participate, and we will be announcing that next Thursday as well before we go on to a break. And thanks for joining us, Evoras. And it was really great meeting you in person, rather than having to go through the math equations to figure out what the hell you're saying. Yeah. So. With that, Josh, we wish you well.
Thank you.
Get back to us in one piece.
Go back to me.
We miss you already. What am I going to do, dude? 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I have a feeling my inbox is going to be full of Yarnilla messages.
It'll
Going,
rush
I'm
by.
bored.
You're gonna have to come watch football with me now.
Yeah.
I suppose I could.
Well,
I don't even watch American football, so I'll just be sitting there going, "Go sports!"
So with that, guys, we will see you all next Thursday, and have a great night. And Everest, again, thanks a lot for joining us. And we'll see you all next time.
Be safe, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Right, so time to log back in. Where are we going, guys?